Okay, we're good to go.
Great, thank you. Okay, so it is now 5:01 p.m. on Tuesday, May 26th. I call this meeting to order, and I will ask the council members and other staff to introduce themselves. Mark, you want
I'm
to go
Mark
first?
Hopang, one of the
Councilmember
FedRec members.
Thank you. Linda?
The other FedRec member, Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you. Council President?
Council President Susan Honda.
Councilmember Greg Russo.
And Councilmember Lydia Safadasa.
Adia Aruola, Finance Director.
EJ Walsh, Public Works Director.
Ryan Call, City Attorney.
Anybody else?
I think Dana is on the line. I don't know if he can speak, but and so is Accounting Manager Chase Donnelly.
Okay. All right. Well, the first item is public comments. Do we have any?
We do not have anybody sign up, so.
All right. We'll skip that for now. All right. Moving on to committee business. The first item is approval of summary minutes, April 28, 2020.
I'd be happy to move to approve the minutes as presented.
Yes, sir.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No.
If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
It's passed 3-0. Second item is the purchase of 2 inspector vehicles, utilizing South Transit funded. Sorry. EJ?
So Councilmember, you pretty much just summed it up. This one is hopefully a little more straightforward than the last time I was in front of you. Tonight we have before you request for authorizing purchase of 2 vehicles, one for community development for the building inspector associated with Sound Transit, and the second one for the public works inspector also associated with Sound Transit. Both of these positions and the equipment, including the vehicles, are funded through our interlocal agreement and the development agreement with Sound Transit. The city has already been paid this money as part of our agreement. This was before you in terms of the overarching interlocal agreement previously that was approved. However, we did not receive authorization to actually encumber the funds specific to the 2 vehicles, although the parent development agreement that had the vehicles in them was previously authorized. The public works position was hired in about the beginning of March, associated with the demolition work that's being done. Currently, they are driving one of the trucks that is slated for they're driving one of the surplus trucks that is slated to go away. So we received the new truck and they're driving the truck until we get this vehicle online. So the big cost difference that you see is that this is not only the vehicles, but all the equipment that goes with it. So it's the lights, it is actually their computers as well for both positions. And then it's all of the other miscellaneous safety equipment from tape measures and road cones and everything else. For the public works inspector, that's about $15,000 worth of equipment per vehicle that we outfit them with. And for community development for a building inspector, it's significantly cheaper because most of their tools are tape measures and books. So for community development, it's about $2,000 worth of equipment. So with that, like I previously mentioned, this is funded through our agreement with Sound Transit, so there is zero city dollars going to this. This is direct money from Sound Transit that can only be used related to the Federal Way Link extension. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Committee members, oh, I see Council President Honda. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Excuse me, EJ, do these two employees only work on the Sound Transit project, or do they work on other projects?
So they are hired specifically for Sound Transit, and they're funded through Sound Transit. The way the development agreement was set up is that if Sound Transit is not fully utilizing them, they can do other work for the city, but their role is first and foremost to be and they're city employees, but to be the inspectors related to Sound Transit. Since Sound Transit's paying for them, effectively, if they're 100% utilized, they go to Sound Transit. For the Public Works Inspector, right now, they are ballpark 75–80% being utilized for Sound Transit, and the remainder is they're doing other city inspections.
One other question, if it's okay. So when this Sound Transit project is over, if there's funding available to go from Federal Way to Tacoma, would they just continue in their role?
So both of them. So that is the intent. The
Okay.
Federal Way Public Works position is, like I mentioned, already staffed. We brought in a former temporary employee and converted them to a full-time term limited employee. The building inspector, the agreement has them slated to be filled at the end of the third quarter or the beginning of the fourth quarter of this year under the development agreement. However, and why we're requesting both now is the community development inspectors use Ford Explorers, and the lead time through state contract to get that is about 6 months right now. So we're trying to get that order in, so it will be after the new employee starts, frankly, but as close to that as we can hit. That being said, both positions, the approval that council gave us was a term limited position. So both of those positions expire at the end of 2024 as it sits right now. So if the Tacoma Dome Link extension doesn't start construction until, call it 6 months into 2025, just for conversation's sake, there's a gap there that we'll either need to come back to council and request specific approval to keep those staff on, or, I mean, right now our approval only goes through the end of 2024. But that would be my goal, yes.
Thanks.
Committee members, Kochmar? Linda, can you unmute?
Good idea.
There you go.
So EJ, I'm trying to understand. So with the two staff members, they're actually hired by the city, correct?
Yes, they're city employees.
And then we must be charging their time to Sound Transit. Is that correct? Or how does that work?
No.
I mean, are we just charging their salary and benefits, or?
So Sound Transit is paying them. They're part of the larger staffing program that the city entered into with Sound Transit. So they are also paying for a building reviewer within CD, someone at the permit center, and then a reviewer and a half within Public Works, as well as a portion of a Parks employee, all associated with us. So we receive a quarterly payment from Sound Transit that covers all of those collective salaries and benefits.
So we're in essence being reimbursed for their salary and benefits.
We're paid ahead, so we're actually paid ahead for them. Yes.
Okay, and then with the purchase of the two vehicles under the state contract, I mean, was it like an open-ended agreement with a cap for the purchase, or did they just say, gee, purchase and pay us, or how did the agreement read? I was just curious. In other words, you got the $105,000. Yes, $105,000 for the inspector vehicle and equipment.
Right.
So did the agreement say you could go up to a certain cap with Sound Transit, or because you've purchased vehicles, and equipment for $105,000? So how did the agreement read? Did it just say, go ahead and purchase it and just bill us, or how did that work? I was just
So
curious.
They pay us ahead. So there was a long list of items that were included in the development agreement to outfit all of the staff that Sound Transit's responsible for. And that includes, for the office staff, it includes things like computers and cell phones. For the field staff, it includes things like vehicles. So in short, I guess the answer to your question is yes, that all of that was built into what they pay the city.
Okay, so then my other question then is, I just want to make sure that if we're using equipment, if it breaks or whatever, that we charge them, that they're going to reimburse us, or, I mean, I'm not sure how the agreement was worded, is what I'm trying to say. I just want to make sure that they pay the full freight.
They do. So they pay, as part of what was negotiated with them, they pay us effectively a maintenance and operations cost associated with them. So there is certainly some, call it, whatever you want, related to, if something breaks day one, yes, the city is going to have to cover the cost as we recoup that M&O from them over time. But the maintenance and operations of all the equipment was built into that development agreement, and they pay for fuel and oil changes and everything else as well.
I was just curious how it worked. My real question with all of this is that I've noticed that there's been equipment sitting on the property to the west of the Sound Transit garage. What's happening with that little strip there?
To the west, so where the sculpture
the
garden
Sound
used to
Transit
be?
garage, we've got the, yes.
So that equipment
Yeah,
that equipment is actually not Sound Transit. So the city owns that parcel, and that is being used as a staging area for the overlay program this year in conjunction with parks.
So my real question is, what's going to happen with that parcel?
That is something that we will probably be talking with council at some point in the not too distant future. Sound Transit's looking at some redesign work on that station area right associated with that, and they're trying to figure out for themselves whether or not they want to make an offer to purchase that from the city. Right now, the council's seen the plan that shows them using that parcel previously. That's the last one that was presented in the fall. But they are also working on trying to optimize their design, so if they don't want to buy unnecessary property. So we're supposed to have an answer from that at some point this summer. But as of right now, I don't know an answer.
My concern is just to limit how many apartments are going to be built in that area.
So if the parcel next to the parking garage, if they acquired that from the city, it would be for parking associated with the transit center, not to surplus. I think the comment about apartments is probably more related to the transit-oriented development, kind of more down where Desiree Industries used to be.
Okay.
And that's probably a slightly...
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. EJ, I'm just curious, once the project is completed, do we keep the cars, or do we have to return it to them?
No, we keep them. So we don't lease cars as a city generally. I think may have been some specific exceptions to that. But our purchasing manual and the city's fleet manual say that we don't purchase vehicles until we can pay for them in full. So we are using the money, and we will write a check for the full amount to the vendor when we receive them, and they will be city property.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions? If not, may I have the motion, please?
I move to authorize staff to purchase 2 inspector vehicles and associated equipment utilizing Sound Transit funding in the total amount of $105,000.
I'll second that.
Hold on. I think the motion should be, I move to forward the
Yes.
option to the consent agenda.
That is the motion.
I move to forward option 1 as previously. dated, thank you very much today, to the June 2nd, 2020 consent agenda for approval. Thank you very much.
Linda, you're a get-it-done gal, aren't you?
Whatever works.
Yes. Okay, I'll second the motion.
All right. Is there any other discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carried 3-0. All right. The
Thank you
third
all.
items is voucher for March 2020.
Actually, Council, for point of correction, it should be voucher April 2020, and the monthly financial report also should be for April 2020, not March, just for a point of correction. Thank you, Council President Under. I think I forwarded my response to the email to all of you, but I'll try to share the screen briefly so that can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Part of the question that a council president asked is in regard to the flagpole replacement, which is the invoice number 272348 on page 3. That particular flagpole is one of the 50 poles by the Aquatic Center. So I think risk management is working as usual. They try to recover any of the damages to our property due to vehicle accident when we can identify. So they've already actually assigned a number to go after this driver for that particular flagpole. The next question is on page 5, which is the invoice number 272319 regarding the Amanda. That is the software maintenance fee for the Amanda software, which we use for the permitting system at CD. On page 5 also, invoice number 22727172. The siting impact study, that is the Sound Transit Operation Facility siting study. I think we set aside, I think about 30,000 or whatever or so to do a study on deciding the impact of siting their operation facility, you know, where they are proposing. That is what that amount is for. And on the last page, that is which, you know, I will have to commend both the court, the police, the, you know, defense attorney and all of that. I think this is using the monitoring system instead of locking people up. There's no sacrifice for the citizens' safety in this. It's just another tool that is available to the court that they are using. So instead of locking them up, they put a monitoring system on them. And of course, it's much cheaper and it's being paid for out of the jail budget. When we put the budget amendment together, that will also be part of the items that I will be bringing to you that actually we're saving money. And I shared that with you at the last finance update a couple of last week. I think based on some of this creative without jeopardizing the security of our citizens, that is some of the areas that we will be saving money that we will use to be able to help us through this revenue shortfall, and we'll be using that during our budget amendment process. So, but that is what that is. It's paid out of jail budget, and it's used for GPS electronic monitoring. The report showed that many people had their money refunded for permits or park program. Can the city use federal funding to cover those costs? actually, since we are refunding revenue, that is not cost, that is revenue shortfall. And the federal specifically disallow using the money for revenue shortfall. So no, we cannot do that. Regarding the sales tax, I think I mentioned that last week, and also it's included in this report. Sales tax, because they are filed with the state, it takes 2 months for that tax to be reflected in the city's revenue stream. The revenues that are paid directly to the city are reflected right away. You know, as I explained last week also, when a business collects sales tax this month in May, they will file their report because it's a monthly filing. They will file their report next month. So the state will collect all of the sales tax next month. Then the following month, they will pay the individual taxing district. That is why it takes 2 months to get to us. But where taxes are filed directly to the city, example of that is they are paying the city directly for utility tax. They are paying the city directly for admission tax. They file that monthly. So we reflect it as soon as we collect that. So that is the difference between the ones that we're reflecting right away and the one that is taking 2 months to get to us. Remember, the ones that is getting 2 months, we're reflecting it as revenue in the month that is available to the city. That is why what the citizens pay in terms of sales tax in March, we won't get it in the city until May. That is when we get the money, and that is when it becomes a revenue to the city in the month of May, not in March when the business collected them. So, I have one more question concerning, according to the lodging tax money, according to the RCW 6728-180, you cannot use lodging tax for general administration in general fund. It's supposed to be used for tourism or tourist enhancement program. So if Kent or any other city is transferring lodging tax, I'm sure they probably have something that they are doing to reimburse themselves. It won't be any different from the sign that we're trying to do. The reason why the sign is being done is intended to be used to advertise for program around the area that will attract tourists into Federal Way. That is part of why that will be a qualified expenditure. I totally agree with Council President. As of now, we don't really know what the full impact of this pandemic, and but regardless of what happened, using lodging tax to subsidize general fund is not a legal way to go. So that can easily and quickly get us into trouble. If Kent is doing it, I have the feeling there's probably some better rationale behind that. I wouldn't think that they are just using it to subsidize their lost revenue in general fund. I have the feeling, I hope, that they have some better reason for doing that.
Ade?
Yes, sir.
This is Thomas. One correction on the Amanda item that Council President Honda asked. That's actually for the web services module that was approved by Council on March 3rd. It's for the it's the integration component that we need in order to connect the My Building Permit system to our Amanda system. So it is a software component that we had to add, and it will be paid for out of the automation fees.
So Thomas, so this is a one-time purchase. It's not a yearly fee, right?
It is a one-time purchase. There is also an ongoing annual fee to it, but it's not nearly that much. I'm gonna.
Got it.
I can get that information for you. It is
Actually,
$6,000 a year annually, but that will also be paid for out of the automation fees.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair, can I ask a question regarding the lodging tax? Question?
Hang on a moment. I believe committee member Kochma has her hands first. Linda?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Tran. Two quick questions. One is regarding the $3,334 for the insurance reimbursement for the pole that was damaged over by the vehicle over by the aquatic center. So you mentioned risk management a day. Are you talking about AWC or whoever we're with now for the insurance authority, or who does it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about our own internal risk management, that which is under the law department. Is an internal department within us.
Oh, in the law
that
department.
Go after.
Okay.
Correct.
Correct. It's not really a department.
Okay.
It's
So do
Tanya
we then?
Proctor collects on these.
Oh, yeah, I know
The,
Tanya.
the lead paralegal.
So
yeah.
do we go after? Yeah. So do we go after those amounts that are those claims that are under a certain amount, or does the insurance authority or whoever we're with now, do they handle?
Our insurance does
the
not
claims?
cover light pole damages, so we are still self-insured for our light poles. There will be some things that we've decided not to include in the insurance pool. So light poles and
Okay.
there's other infrastructure things, minor things. Buildings are covered. More expensive things are covered, but
Okay.
light poles are generally not. Railings are not.
At some point, I'd like to. Sure. I don't know if you've done this because I've come only since January. I'm wondering if you've had any kind of a presentation to the council regarding, we're in a pool now, and I'd like to know where we stand in the pool with regard to claims, with regard to, I know for the big, if we're in the pool or the smallest in the pool,
We're
there's
the largest.
a range in between. Yeah, that's
We're
what
the,
I've heard
we're the
about.
largest in the pool.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd like to have some kind of a that's not necessarily a good thing. What I'd like to have is some kind of a presentation at some point in the insurance authority. Are we with WCIA or who are we with? Who is it that we're with now
Yes. WCIA.
for the insurance authority or for our insurance?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to ask for a presentation. They're going to know what I'm asking for to the council on what they offer and where they'll make a presentation on the people that they cover, the amount of money for claims. They'll make a presentation to the council. I'd really like to see an overview. It's not particular claims,
Of course.
it's just an overview at some
Yeah,
point.
and we did.
Okay, thank
Council
you.
has seen
And
that
then-
already.
Mhm.
So either we could do it to council
Okay,
again. Everybody's already seen it, or we could arrange to have you do it individually. Either way. Before we
I'll talk
decided to join the
council,
pool,
President
yeah.
Honda,
Sorry, I'm talking
you
over you.
asked for that.
Before we joined the pool, we had a
Okay.
lot of these type of
Mhm.
presentations before that decision was made. So
Yeah, I
This is
see.
our first
I
year
figured
in
you
it.
might have. Yeah, well, I don't want to reinvent the wheel or go over. Maybe you could just talk to me later, or I'd really like to know how this whole system is working, so I
Sure.
can get a handle on it. Okay, all right, and however we do it, I'm fine. I just need to have somebody talk to me about it or make a presentation. And I making a presentation to the council, I don't think is a bad idea, but at any rate, but we could talk about that. The second thing I would like to do, and this may be something that Chair Tran would ask for, But I would like to see a presentation on the Performing Arts and Event Center. Now we know that we're going to have difficulty for a while with people wanting to go back into an enclosed space, I am surmising. But I would like to look at some different options that Council President Honda has already mentioned about different uses for the PAC while we're in a downturn here. And I just like to think outside the box and how we can cover our expenses. And so I'm wondering if we could do a brainstorming session on that. And that would be a question for Chair Tran.
I really like that
up
idea.
at a finance.
So
Cool.
Would you like
Okay.
that presentation
that
for the
could be a
council
future
or for
agenda
federal?
item. Chair Tran, what do you prefer?
I think in this particular issue, my opinion is that let's discuss within the FedRAC's committee first and see what we can come
Yeah.
up with, and then we can move on some of the items that we
Yeah.
agree upon to the full council.
Okay. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
to
And I agree with you, Chair Tran. And I go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Council-
talk to John Hutton and ask them to be at the next month FedRAC to be able to do a presentation regarding to that.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Council President Honda, do you wish to speak at this
Yes.
time?
Sure.
Go ahead,
So
please.
this was in the Kent Reporter, and it says, the city council also plans to move $50,000 of return lodging tax funds from a canceled contract into the general fund to help pay for economic recovery activities such as promotions of local restaurants.
Mhm.
So is that something we could also do if we needed to do something like that?
If they consider lodging tax, and I can get a full copy of the RCW that I cited, it's intended for tourism enhancement. I'm not so sure saving restaurants is enhancing tourism. I think it's something that the city attorney and I can look into, but just off the cuff from my point of view, I don't think trying to save restaurant is something that is anticipated when the lodging tax RCW was developed. So, but with this pandemic, I think we are looking for resources wherever we can find it. And so from my perspective, just right on top of my head, I don't think this is what was intended for lodging taxes, but it's something that we can further look into.
Okay, thank you. It was just interesting to see how they're using it, so I thought I would ask you about it.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Committee members, Copan, please.
Oh, yes. I also am interested in hearing what other ideas the management team will have for Spectra, I should say, will have for alternative uses for the PAC. I think we've hired them obviously to be professionals and to bring to bear their full organization's knowledge base, and I definitely would like to see them. I know that it's been very difficult, but I think we definitely need to see if there's a plan that they can come up with that we as a council can support that does go outside of the current constraints, but would bring revenue sooner. So I think it's a good thing for us to do. But again, Spectra is the management company. Obviously, we're managing them, but they need to be the ones to bring the ideas to us, and we can certainly plant some seeds.
Chair Tran,
Okay.
Yes.
I'm showing that Brian Hoffman is actually on the meeting, but he's joined as an attendee. Would you do you want me to allow him to talk with the
Yes, please.
committee? Okay. All right, Brian, can you hear us?
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Brian.
Hello. Yeah, I'm available for any questions, or if you want to wait until next month since there wasn't anything on the agenda, but happy to answer any questions that any of you have related to the PAC.
All right. So Brian, I was just wondering, while we wait to set up this this meeting, is it possible for you and your staff can brainstorm some ideas so that member of the council can take a look at it?
Yes, we can, and unfortunately, there's not a me plus staff. It's just me, as all of my full-time staff have been furloughed. So it is just myself. We do have some things in the pipeline coming up in June and July that can help us gain a little bit of revenue, but I think what I'm hearing is that you guys want to kind of have this brainstorming session. So that'll allow me a couple of weeks to get some of these things that we're working on together and put them into a presentation for you, and then have the appropriate amount of time to discuss that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Tran, or Committee Chair Tran, one more question.
Yes,
Brian. Obviously, the COVID-19 crisis has affected Spectra nationally. Is there some energy around looking at alternatives and different ways to do business within the Spectra organization regarding venues of our size?
We are as an industry. So yes, as Spectra and as an industry, we're probably one of the hardest hit, and will be one of the last ones that are allowed to open and conduct a business. So, you know, it's everything from drive-in outdoor concerts to drive-in outdoor theaters to food truck scenarios. You know, I mean, we have had last month, we actually rented out our parking lot to Amazon for truck training and driver training, and looking to do that again in June so that we can at least get some revenue. But a lot of it is we're kind of hamstrung by the government and the governor's office with what we can and what we can't do. And then what we can do, how can we execute that with how many people and social distancing and those types of things. And also, we currently have 3 different departments throughout our facility, or 3 different city departments utilizing our facility as well, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
Thank you, Brian.
And at this time, I would like to call committee members. Coach Ma, go ahead.
Thank you. So, yeah, that's really what I was thinking of was, you know, thinking outside the box. You know, whether we create a venue around the building outside, or lease the building inside for, you know, different things. Council President Honda mentioned something about possibly the school district might need to lease it for some of their, you know, they're going to have social distancing within the schools next year. But Sound Transit may need to have large meetings somewhere, but somehow to generate revenue so that we're not losing money on that building every month. Just to think outside the box and just to create some kind of other ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council President Honda.
Thank you. Brian, have other facilities in other states that have already opened up, have they come up with ways that people could socially distance themselves and still use a performing arts facility?
So, to my knowledge, there's only been one performing arts center that has opened up, and that was in Arkansas. And they had a very, very reduced capacity. I want to say 20%. So I don't know the size of the facility, but they really restricted it down to the number of people that were in there. And yes, they were allowed to kind of do their operations with socially distancing and having individuals, no cash, or it was actually a cashless payment systems. The box office and will call went by the wayside, and everybody was emailed their tickets on their phone or a kiosk to scan in the tickets. So these are a lot of things that we as an industry are looking at on kind of what those guidelines look like and what our operations look like once we do open. And we have done some scenarios on operating at 20% capacity, at 50% capacity with seating charts and placing people, like skipping every other row and moving people around to accommodate the social distancing guidelines.
Thank you.
Great. I don't see any more hands. Great discussion. Thank you, everybody. All right. May I have the motion, please?
Yeah, I move to forward the vouchers to the June 2nd, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
Good job, Chair Kopang, and I'll second that.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carried 3-0. Last item on the list, monthly financial report. This is for April 2020, right, Ade?
Yes, it is.
Thank you for the correction.
On page 62, just a quick point out, the sales tax is 0.02 million or 0.4% above the 2020 year to date. I think before the pandemic, and I'm hoping that the council will pay attention to this trend. I think the real message will be next month. If you watch the March presentation, the February presentation, and as we go in this report too, actually our sales tax revenue this year, every month has been good. And I had a feeling next month probably will be a break from that increase. CD permits and fee is 0.3 million or 30.8% below 2020 year-to-date budget and 0.6 million or 43.1% below 2019. Even though the CD is still collecting money, but due to pandemic and also the expected recession, I expect some of these to slow down as we go along. Utility tax is 0.12 million or 3.5% below 2020 year-to-date budget and 0.05 million or 1.6 below 2019. So you see the trend in those revenue streams. Our property tax revenue is also below 2019 year-to-date by 108,000 and 2.5%, and below 2020 year-to-date budget by 236,000. Court revenue is the same thing. Admission tax is the same thing. Even though the court revenue and admission tax, they are much smaller, and I'm hoping with the next week presentation to the council, I will break down this court revenue, the admission tax, and actually do a projection for you, even though some of them are small, but I'll try to relate it as they relate to the total general fund revenue stream so that we can gauge their impact. On page 64, again, that further shows the impact of property tax, which as of now, we're shy of the year-to-date budget by 235,000. Our sales tax is below by 16,000. Our admission tax about 29,000. CD permit fees, that is down by about 331,000. And our parks and general recreation fee is also down by about 150,000. So if you look below, looking at our spending in general fund, and those are part of the changes that we are planning to make during the budget adjustment. You have the human resources. That is because of the negotiation that is going on, about 40,000. But at the same token, you see the savings in jail, 522,760. And then the police, because of the overtime, it's about 25,000 over their budget. And park and recreation, that also is about 64,940 above their spending. So, but in total, in general fund, we've underspent year to date by 914,000. So, which is really good. But if you compare that to our revenue projection, our revenue is underfunded by a little bit over 400,000. So we've underspent by twice of what our revenue shortfall is. On page 68, on page 66, under the sales tax, again, that will show what I was saying regarding the sales tax revenue. For the month of February, we were over by 131,000. In March, we were over by 77,000. And of course, in April, by 68,000. So the real tax will be next month when we get the May report. But this year, before the pandemic, has been good in terms of our sales tax revenue. On page 68, looking at a Prop 1, again, just for the benefit of, I know the council talked to the public a great deal. This is where the Prop 1 is broken down. When the Prop 1 ordinance was passed several years ago, it listed all the positions that we will use that money for. And every year, the cost of those positions have gone up, and they are going up faster than the revenue that is being generated for that purpose. So if you were to look at what we're spending out of it, we have police services, which includes 1 record specialist, 16 police officers, and 2 lieutenants. So as of the end of April, we spent more than 800,000 in there. And the budget for 2020 is 2.7 million. They're supposed to come out of Prop 1. And the same thing for the court services. We budgeted 441 and we spent 105. And with a total, annual budget of 3.2 million, and we spent a little bit over 900,000. Other spending includes community safety program costs, where we have a code enforcement and 0.5 assistant city attorney and 1 park maintenance worker. So those are the positions that are listed when Prop 1 was established. But if you look at the total spending, the total revenue and the total amount that we plan to spend, the spending is usually higher than what we are projecting to bring in. So we usually end up transferring from utility tax, the regular utility tax, into Prop 1. So not the other way around. So when you the citizens are asking you questions about Prop 1, actually regular utility tax is subsidizing the Prop 1 program. On the next page, on page 69, regarding real estate excise tax, this year, if you are comparing the 2020 budget to 2019 actual, before the pandemic, we were anticipating lower revenue stream. So our budget for 2020, if you are comparing month by month, is lower than what we did last year. But with the pandemic now, actually, I do think that our performance in REIT will actually be less, again, than what we've projected. Hotel motel, yes, even though this is in terms of the impact to the city, it's a small amount, but with total shutdown in the past few months, I have the feeling we will now make the projected revenue. This does not affect general fund as such, but nonetheless, some of the things that we're doing, if we didn't use hotel motel money for the sign, we will have to come up with that money through general fund. So I guess in a way, hotel motel fund is benefiting the general fund. If the general fund, if the city decides to put a sign at the entrance of the city, we will have to find a way to fund it. But so we're anticipating less revenue in that area. At the bottom of page 69, you can also see the permit activity. That is the CD permit. Comparing again to 2019, we projected lower revenue. You know, the total revenue for 2019 was 1.3 million. We budgeted just a little bit over 1 million for 2020. Now this year, you can see we've done a little bit, we've done much less than actually what was even projected. On page 71, the same thing applies to the court. The court revenue has really gone down, especially now with the court closure. I think that probably will further decrease. And for the past few months, if you compare what we budgeted, even what we collected last year, the amount is really, really down. For example, in the month of March, we budgeted 104,000. This year, we've only done about 86,000. And the same thing for the month of April. We budgeted almost 100,000, and we've only done 65,000. On page 75, we have the COVID-19 expenditure. So through the end of April, we're saying we spent about 138,000, and we should be able to recover all of these through the COVID-19 funding. That is, I will be glad to answer any question.
Ade, thank you for your presentation. I do have a question in regard to property tax decrease. Is this because of the King County moved the due date until the end of June instead of April?
Yes, that will have an impact on it because now, I mean, I think some of us personally are also taking advantage of that. Yes, that is having a big impact. I'm hoping that we will not have that much foreclosure. You know, I hope people that are taking advantage of that, they're now seeing it as a tax holiday. They are not spending the money that they're supposed to use to pay their property tax. But yes, because King County, you know, gave them that holiday, that is affecting the cash flow, yes.
Thank you. Council President Honda.
Thank you. Ade, do you know what percentage of people have not paid their property tax in Federal Way?
Oh, no, I do not.
Okay.
But I think I can, before the next meeting, if that is something that we want to know, I can reach out to King County and try to see percentage of people that I have paid and compared to the total number of people that we have.
Thank you.
Committee members, Copan.
I just want to make one quick clarification on King County property taxes. They're actually due June 1st. I just double check that. So we get a tax holiday in May, but June 1, those revenues will come in. So it's not as big a gap as it might appear.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that information. I keep thinking about June 30th. All right. Let's see who else. I don't see any hands up. All right. If there's no questions or concern, may I have the motion, please?
Chair Tran, I move to forward the April 2020 monthly financial report to the June 2nd, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
I second that.
Thank you. There's a motion. There's a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried
Did you
3-0.
A day stuck a vote in there. All right.
All right. Good job. Well, that's all I have for now. Is there anything else we need to discuss? Our next meeting is going to be June 23rd at 5 p.m. And hopefully by then we can meet in person, but I still kind of doubt it.
Just for the record, Council Member, I'm hoping to bring before the committee a budget amendment, so we may actually it probably would take a little bit longer, than the regular meeting. So, just an FYI.
Thank you, Ade. All right. I think that's all. Again, thank you, everybody, for attending this meeting. And have a safe week. See you later.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye, Lydia. Bye, Greg. I didn't see you.
See ya.
Say hi
Bye.
to you.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.